But it wasn't easy to start out with. Focusing on like a limited amount of samples, it was like completely different from anything I've ever done.
You know, in a way, if you had a publisher, it might be a bit easier because you go, well, responsibility is over there and they tell us when we've gone too far. Whereas here, we now have to take on all of the kind of creative decisions and also, you know, strategic decisions.
A father who said, I usually sit down with my daughter every night and I play through one chapter of Monument Valley together before she goes to bed. And being able to solve things together in a type of gameplay that's approachable for both of those two different people, that's why you decide to make games.
For some hardcore gamers, the mobile gaming industry is disregarded as a place for casual gaming and forced microtransactions. But there are plenty of developers out there who've crafted wonderful experiences specifically for the mobile platform. I spoke with two British developers, ustwogames, the creators behind the award-winning Monument Valley and Land's End, as well as Outofthebit, creators of the addictive rhythm game Planet Quest. So, where does it all start?
Initially, we wanted to make a game very quickly, so we allocated like 2 weeks of time. It didn't turn out that way because it ended up going over and over, as they do.
And after maybe 3 weeks of this one isometric piece of art being up on the wall with a slight sense of impossibility, we said we have to make this. So we dedicated 1 week's worth of time and 2 people to try and figure out how this would work as a game. Because the picture doesn't describe how it is as a game, it's just a catalyst, it's a sort of an initial seed of an idea. But for us, we did that initial prototype for 1 week, and then we dedicated more people to the project for 2 weeks to not only say what is the mechanic, but how would a level feel, and you kind of grow the scale up from there. So then it was, how do you now insert a character and the animations in this to make you feel a certain way in a level that you've already made?
Monument Valley was amazing and very lucky in how quickly it kind of came together. And Land's End was actually probably more of a difficult birth. We spent a lot longer trying to work out what that interaction was and how to make that feel good, because the difference between feeling great and feeling absolutely nauseating is very, very close. And so, you know, at worst case scenario, if you're making an iPad game, someone puts it down. Worst case scenario with VR is people feel terrible. So kind of that initial process of iterating on how to make things feel comfortable was, you know, a good 2 or 3 months before we even decided we were comfortable we could do the project.
Now, making games for mobile isn't as simple as porting over a console ideology and game mechanics. So what's different about making a game for your smartphone?
On mobile, you can't really explain too much. If you explain too much, you're lost. Because people are, you know, usually when they play a mobile game, they're probably tired, they just want to chill out, they want to relax, they don't want to engage their brain too much in learning too much new stuff. In that regard, Planet Quest is quite successful because it's very primitive. You just tap the screen, there are skills involved, no doubt. I'm terrible, in fact, at Planet Quest, I have no music abilities whatsoever.
We only believe in doing things for the platform that they were designed for. So Monument Valley is very tactile. It feels like a toy when you play with it. We designed the game with a mouse and keyboard. Like, we could very easily release it for a mouse and keyboard, but it doesn't feel like the same kind of game, so we don't do it. The sound and the session lengths, the chapters are split up into chunks specifically designed to be used on the go, for example. There may be 1-2 minutes worth of content at a time. And then even the sound itself, like if you are one of these people who decides to use headphones with a mobile game, which is quite rare in itself, you'll realize that the visuals and the soundscape all contribute towards you having a sense of escapism in what you have. And that's much stronger on a mobile game with headphones than it would be on your average PlayStation user or PC user.
What people expect, what people pay for, how much they're willing to wait when they play a game. Like on PC or console, we may wait for loading times. On mobile, you don't want to wait for anything.
Maximising the amount of assets you use and or reusing is a common trait in video games. We're always using the same samples. It's not 50 different MP3 files, it's 50 different music sheets in a way, which is nothing. So I think, yeah, like making it as efficient as possible, making it as small scale as possible, but no one will care because they won't, check the app size, but it's the way it performs and the way the game runs will really benefit from it.
So we combine the vector engine, which is called Stock, together with Songbird, which is the audio engine we created for the tracker system. Everything is generated real time, and the whole game is about 30 megabytes, including graphic and audio, which is quite impressive.
Like with our graphics engine, it's made on an iPad, so what you see is what you get. Like you can draw it on the iPad for all the graphics, and it's because it's running well on the engine, it's going to run well in the game. And yeah, whatever you draw is exactly what you're going to see, so it's super useful.
Developers are used to taking care of the creative side of production, but not the business side. By developing for mobile, publishers aren't necessarily needed to help with the production cycle and take their games to market. So what's it like to work without a publisher?
I've been working in games for 9 years now, and from working somewhere like Microsoft, it always felt like you were trying to impress somebody else. And even if I was working at another studio where you had a publisher in mind, you were always trying to tick the boxes that made somebody else like the milestone that you just had, or to ensure that you got another milestone payment to continue development. Whereas the biggest sort of change in our own mentality from switching over to ustwogames is the fact that we didn't answer to anybody.
You know, there are pros and cons. The publisher puts money into a game, and it makes sense. They want a return, they want a deadline, right? They say, okay, very important for us for marketing reasons. What do? You do crunch time, right? You compromise on the quality of the game, probably. You rush it to the market. We are absolutely against that.
Do we want to spend more money? Do we want to spend more time doing this? And so it can be difficult having those pressures be part of our thinking process.
We knew that this was the first time in all of our careers where the success of this game was 100% reliant on how we made it, without any excuses. And that's amazingly freeing, but at the same time, it's the scariest situation that I'd ever been in. Because you had no excuses, it was just about your own performance. And it genuinely felt like yours. Like you ask any of the 8 people who made that game, and it was the first time they'd made a game that felt like theirs.